Hello and welcome to Inside News with Dale Matthews, with Mike Jones, with Brian Pombo, and this is our 501st show in a row. Hello, gentlemen.
Yes, we're insane. Good evening and welcome Brian Pombo to our show. I don't think he's ever been on the show before.
No, never been on the show. Thank you for having me, guys. I look forward to every moment.
Oh, as you can see, there were reasons that we never had him on the show before. Okay, so today we're going to talk with Brian. Mike and I met Brian because he runs a political conversation group every month. And a number of people who are interested in local politics especially. Aren't we all interested in every other kind of politics, like Albanian politics and etc.? But we talk about local politics at his group meeting, and that's why it's called the Confederate Air Force Conservative Action Force. No, Conservative Action Forum, that's what it is. And Brian does other things too. It's a complete mystery to Mike and I. What else do you do, Brian?
Well, on top of that meeting that we just have once a month out in Grants Pass, I also during the day I'm a business strategist. So I do business strategy and marketing coaching. Work with a number of different business owners, both locally and nationally. And just help them with their business.
Oh, now he's just a circle.
If I had a business, let's say I was opening a new restaurant like, Out and In Burgers, how would you help me with my strategy? Is it totally a marketing thing?
Yeah, it would all depend on your scenario. So what I tend to do is I tend to sit down and talk with the person and see if there's something I can actually help them with, or whether it's a personal issue. Oftentimes business owners have just as many personal issues as other people, and they've got to take care of that. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I can't help with that. But I can help a person deal with kind of stepping back and taking a look at their business as a whole. And oftentimes it's a marketing issue, because if you get the marketing right, you can make more money. If you make more money, you can fix a lot of the other problems that are also happening in the business. So I kind of came into business strategy from the marketing end, but it's not always marketing. Well, sometimes it's something else that's real simple.
Right. Well, maybe you can help us here, because we've done 501 shows and we don't make any money at all.
Oh, but we do have a viewer who has promised to show us where our backing comes from. So we're looking forward to that. It's one of those kind of
loans for Brian.
Yeah, well, I was going to suggest that Brian go full-time to the city council meetings and see if he can talk some. Yeah, but he says he doesn't deal with psychological problems, so he may not be able to help them.
That's right. But when it deals in politics, you're mainly dealing with psychological problems, as you well know.
That is true. That is true.
We have a lot in common, because we deal with telling the truth about local politics and making suggestions for solutions. You deal with economic strategy, and both of us have a lifetime of work ahead of us in this location.
Yep, that's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll never run out of work.
The difference is Brian gets paid to do it.
Well, we get the adoration of our audience, and there's nothing that beats that.
Of our fan.
Yeah, yes.
Fan, yes.
Yes, where the show meets the fan.
Now, and here, hang on just a second. Let me point out to the audience, Dale's never-ending creativity has given us this creation behind his right shoulder there. Can anybody figure out what that is?
Well, it's a pombo, of course. It's a bow tie with palm trees on it. It's Brian Pombo.
Yes, right.
When you grow up with a last name like Pombo, it's pretty unique in most places. You
Right.
hear a little bit of everything, but I've never actually seen a Pombo before.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So now,
Go ahead.
one of the things that happened yesterday is that we met together with Brian and a number of other political action forum kind of people, and one of the people that was there was Stu Sinnott. And it was minutes after our meeting that we no longer have Stu Sinnott with us. So it seemed to me, because he was in a one-person auto accident. We'll find out later what happened. It was shocking to all of us. And for those of you who are going, Stu Sinnott, I know I've heard that name. Here is a video lovingly provided for you about Stu Sinnott so that you can see here who this guy was. And I wouldn't say that he's Simon Hare's favorite guy. Here's Stu Sinnott at his best.
Stuart Sinnott, Grants Pass. Well, I've been living...
You're spelling it S-T-E-W or?
S-T-U-A-R.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a pretty new resident to this area, and as far as I can see, it's been a real active area, a lot of things going on. First thing was they tried to push a sales tax through, was voted down. Then there's all this hocus pocus going on with commissioners here. And it's very unsettling to, first of all, see somebody who has the public trust violate that trust and act in a way which an ordinary citizen is not expected to act. But somebody who is in the public trust should be always held to a higher standard. And the other thing that I have personally is that I came the last time to this meeting, and it was the first time I ever been to a commissioners meeting, and I was, no disrespect, but I was looking at you, and I noticed something very odd about you, and I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, hope that you overcome your problems, because you're obviously a bright young man, and you got yourself in something that's an addiction, and I know it's tough, but you got to know that you got to deal with your problems first. And when you serve as a commissioner, you're making your problems our problems, because you're not going to come out with the best logical decisions in any situation, because you're not. When you're addicted, your mind is somewhere else. You're not in total control of your faculties. So, I mean, there's nobody in there, right? Nobody's going to ever convince me that a person who's addicted to something is going to make logical decisions, especially when the people are concerned. And to you two commissioners, Mr. Heck and Ms. Walker, I say to you this: you work very closely with this man. You mean you never saw that this man was not of right sound mind? I mean, you're at best, you're either unaware, and at worst, you're an enabler. So what that doesn't tell me much about your personal character. I think, in my mind, everybody ought to clean house here, because you got to start thinking about this. You're either an enabler or you're not very aware, and either way, I don't think you do the people of this area justice. So anyway, wish you all the best on your new professions, whatever they may be. Thank you.
Stu Sinnott, and he was going to run for county commissioner next time. Yeah, buddy.
He boiled it right down to its essence, pretty much. There is no word mincing going on, no parsing, no wondering what the meaning is.
Imagine what the lineup would be with Stu Sinnott versus Simon Hare for his position. Although Simon said he wasn't going to run, we never know with this guy. Outspoken, good guy, I think. Yeah. So we're going to miss the presence of Stu Sinnott. Okay, so Brian Pombo, tell us words of wisdom for the next 45 minutes, and we expect we'll just sort of sit back and listen.
Yes. I got nothing. I thought Brian was going to carry this show tonight. So
that's right. That's exactly right.
Well, Oh, go
So,
ahead.
so talk to us about local politics, if you will. That's what this show is about, in case you don't know. And we'd very much like to hear some of the observations that you've made over time about especially this race that's going to be finally announced. The winners will be announced live on this show at about 8:01 on Tuesday night. Talk to us a little bit about that, would you please?
Well, there's this unique thing about Josephine County and its races, specifically for the commissioner's race, because you have a system. You get to see what it's like to have no political parties in place and just everyone running at the same time, and everything just kind of being thrown to the wind. And so you have a little bit of everyone and you really don't know where they're coming from. They'll go to one meeting and be everything to those people. They'll go to another meeting and be everything to those people. And there's really no one there to call them on it because none of us like political parties, but they do kind of hold a purpose. And this is one of those purposes. It gives you a little bit of a flavor of the person on which political party they choose to run on. And so
right,
having
where they
all
line
these
up
people at the
ideologically.
same time.
Yeah, one of the questions I have for anybody that can answer is that it's easy to see what race most of the people who are running are in, but what political party does Keith Heck belong to? Really?
That's right. No, it's really odd. Local politics has its own flavor to begin with. You bring in the tax issues into Grants Pass, and the difference between a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, they all get melded all together. I mean, none of them really, it doesn't fit the what you would consider the modern era of conservative liberal in the U.S.
Well, I've often said that there are really only two political parties in our county, and that's the Old Boys Network and everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? I think a lot of different people have a different idea of what an Old Boys Network is. There is no actual club that is the Old Boys Network.
Oh, it comes pretty close, but yes. Well, a club. Yeah.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that these are people that have a certain inclination about government, and that is that. And this is my view of it, so feel free to pitch in with yours after the fact. I see it as people who desire to assist government in existing for its own sake, as opposed to in service to the people. It's for the benefit of the people inside that club. And then you have some people that probably come in with good intentions to serve the people and end up being in that club. And then you have some that intend to stay in service to the people and then ultimately end up enemies of that system.
I think that says it fairly well. We usually don't see more than one person from the sort of outside that's not absorbed into the system. We saw Wally Hicks. Nice guy. I always did like Wally Hicks. I was pressing for him. I was glad to see the end of Steve Rich after 20 years. The very first time the Steve Rich County Legal Counsel was challenged, he lost to Wally Hicks. And to me, Wally Hicks even said so on the campaign trail, and it sounded like he was going to, I'm here to represent the people. I'm the only elected legal counsel in the entire state. I will serve the people, and I think he started off that way. Then we saw, little by little, and then all of a sudden, altogether, Wally Hicks be absorbed into the system, and then to me, his low point was when he was saying, we were talking about this last night, at one point we had already shown you a video of something that had happened in the little back room, and he said, well, you don't have that on tape. And I said, yes, we do. We just saw that last night. No, you don't. You don't have it on tape. Wally, of course we have it on tape. No, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, listen. Wow. The problem that I noticed with Wally was when we were doing the interviews with him in his office, and I thought that, I'm reading the charter, which I have a copy of right here, and we were dealing with the affirmations of the Bill of Rights, certain portions of the Bill of Rights in the back of the charter, and this was right in the midst of the sugar pine mine operation, and I was reading some of these paragraphs on intent. The intent of this charter amendment is to provide citizens of Josephine County with local protection of one of their inalienable rights as originally defined by our founding fathers in the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights. And his answer to that just made my head explode when he said, "Oh, well, that I think what that says, that is actually commanding us to do nothing."
He did say that. He did say, and by the way, just a second, Brian. I know that the way that you run those meetings when we get together is that you let people speak, and every once in a while you prompt them. But if you don't jump in on this show, you're not going to even be heard.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'll jump in.
Okay.
Well, so anyway, and I feel bad about the situation because I don't want to be a Wally Hicks basher. I don't. I just think that it's difficult to get a county council who's not looking at things like an attorney, and I understand what he was doing. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Because he is an attorney. I understand that what he was doing when you're reading through that, he's thinking, how can I read this in such a way that mitigates the liability of the county? Because we don't want to step out there and put our ass out on the line and somehow get it shot off if we're trying to, give citizens local protection. That could get us, on the wrong side of the federal or the state government, and then we'd be in a world of hurt. I can understand that from an attorney's point of view.
Depends on who he's representing. He's supposed to represent all of us because he's elected, and that puts him into a different category.
Yes, but his job, though, what is the job of the county council?
That's the question.
Is there to be legal counsel, and what does your legal counsel do? To the county.
To the entire county. So what happens when you get one side of the county that's against the other side of the county?
Yeah, but the thing is that in reality, though, the county council is there to be counsel. He is not going to. You can't make an appointment with Wally to get advice about your impending divorce.
No, but you can't. But you used to be able to. Make an appointment with Wally to talk about county issues that were stemming from the grassroots. He used to make that time available. Now he does not. Now he has defined his role as defending these three county commissioners as if they had hired him as their private attorney.
Yeah, but in reality, though, unfortunately, the way
he started
that
this way,
that is what his job is.
As he has now defined it. It changed. He's changed.
Well, okay, listen.
I think you have to look at it from his perspective too. Because it's difficult to do. It's always difficult to look at it from a lawyer's perspective.
If you insist.
Yeah. It's always difficult to look at things from a lawyer's perspective because they have the ability to really bend perception in ways that are unique. Wally started out first came on the public scene, at least to my recollection, when he was the state representative.
Right.
And he moved forward from there to then run for the county council position. I was actually working directly with him on doing phone calls with him. Also, Bill Gina was both of us were teamed up, and we made a huge push to get Wally in there because we knew
I was a big supporter. I was a big supporter as well. Yes.
A lot of people were.
Yeah.
And
me too.
And so if you're comparing one against the other, I think we can agree that Wally has been at least an improvement in the beginning.
Oh,
As
yes.
we're dealing with it now, what we're dealing with here is I bet if you asked Wally and actually got his perspective, he sees that defending the county is defending the people.
Which
he
people?
Sees that
Which
defending
people?
the commissioners, it's
Yes.
all the people in the county. Because
Yeah.
the county commissioners aren't just up against, it's not just the county commissioners versus the people. That's where we always see it from our perspective, because we have so many grievances with them. But they're also coming up against the state. They're coming against the federal government. And so he's looking at it from all different angles, and he has a very military mind. I believe he was in the Marines, and
yes.
you can almost see the hierarchy when you hear him discuss it of how this is all laid out, and somehow he's been able to defend his positions on these.
Okay,
things,
so where he runs afoul of the state, and this is partially due to me, is that when the Oregon Government Ethics Commission found that the 3 commissioners were guilty of breaking the law, you see, Wally Hicks was in on every one of those meetings with them, and I was there when he handed them the instructions saying to explain to them how to not break the law. And they were pretty argumentative about it. But past that point, at those meetings at which we were not allowed because we're not media, that's another story altogether. We could tell just from being on the outside that they were breaking the law, and Wally was right there, and that was the commissioner's main defense. Well, Wally Hicks was here, and Mike and I heard the OGEC lecture somebody else. Do you remember what that guy had to say, Mike? The fellow that had gotten in trouble with them, and what am I supposed to do when illegal things are happening? Why don't you tell him that, Mike?
Yeah, get up and leave. He said, leave the room. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to be in the room. Brian, I have a question. And I realize this is probably uncomfortable because of your the assistance that you gave in getting him elected and.
Well, that's why I brought it up. Because of his connection, yes.
Okay, but not meaning to, make the entire show about that, but I wonder, how do the people, you said there was a number of people that you worked with in getting Wally elected, and do you have any feeling of this, how do these people feel about what they've got out of Wally Hicks since his election?
I think it's a matter of degrees. See, you've got so many other enemies in the county that are always putting themselves up against the people. Wally is low on the totem pole as far as
I agree.
Consider an enemy.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And the details that you guys see on a regular basis, and people who watch your show, those are the things that those people who are really paying attention notice. But that doesn't get past our sphere of influence. The people, you, I, and the other people watching the show, that those ideas, they're not concrete enough that you can say, well, did you hear that Wally said this, this, and this? It's not. It doesn't have the stickiness, the marketing stickiness that brings a person to be unpopular. Yeah.
I'd like to point out, by the way, now you've seen
stickiness.
Term here, Dale. Yeah, it is. You've seen how we have slightly different points of view about this, and we're unafraid, which is one reason I wasn't reluctant to bring this up with Brian, because of his background of supporting Wally Hicks, and Mike and I did too. This is the kind of atmosphere that exists in the Conservative Action Forum, and if there was anybody who was wondering about Stu Sinnott, this is exactly the kind of give and take that Stu Sinnott was very good at. And so after Stu was gone and we all recovered a bit from the shock, I'm sure each one of us thought, boy, was there anything toward the end of that meeting that I said that Stu might not like? Stu was, you saw, he was such a resilient, tough guy that you could just say just about anything and maybe disagree with them, and he wasn't going to say, oh, I hate you. There are candidates who do fall into that category, current candidates, that if you said anything about their hair or something, they'd go kind of nutso and then start telling people weird stories about you that are untrue. I think there are weird stories that are true, but this was not Stu Sinnott. So just thought I'd toss that in. Lovely guy. Left that meeting happy to be here, and so I'm happy to change the subject now.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, tell us what you see. Go ahead, Mike. All right.
No, I was going to go in the direction that you're going right now. So
yes.
Keep on ahead.
So Brian, tell us what you see about the various permutations of the possible pairings up, I think you would say, of these different candidates. We've got some that are running for position 2, some that are running for position 3, and Simon here is inextricably linked to position number 1. We've got to do something about that in 2 years. But how do you see the partnerships or potential partnerships, and what would be, in your opinion, the most interesting combination of people to end up in the final 4, as they say in basketball?
Mike and I were discussing a lot of this at the meeting before anyone else got there about the lack of polling and so forth, so you really don't know where everything is coming and going in the county right now, especially concerning these races. I've worked in a couple of the other commissioner races in the past. You don't know the whole time, really, other than your feel on the ground, and you can't really tell which direction things are going. So as far as me actually knowing which way they're going, I don't. If there's a groundswell for one of the anti-establishment candidates, I don't know of it personally.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. If I was
Right.
just to go by the numbers, just to guess who was going to get through, I would say people with the greatest name recognition would have the best shot this time around, being that none of the issues seem to have completely caught fire and none of the candidates have completely taken over.
So Keith Heck is going to make it through then. Listen, the Courier made some choices, some endorsements, as it were. They chose Keith Heck and Dan DeYoung and Ron Smith and Lily Morgan.
Yes.
What do you think? That. I mean, is that just their wish, or is that, do you think that there's I mean, they're not making a prediction either. They were sort of making an endorsement, and they would probably like to pick those candidates for us. But do you think that's sort of in the ballpark of a possibility we might end up with?
Yes. I think it's very close.
Really? You think that Keith Heck might be one of the final 4?
Believe it or not, I do.
Yeah, that's...
Wow.
The whole issue of name recognition and the fact that there isn't a huge groundswell against any of it, well, Keith Heck being the only incumbent running, but any of the and you've got the two that they picked out of that are currently or just recently city council people. You don't have a huge negative against them, and they have enough people still backing them up that they've got the most momentum going for them. Now, in the other race with Lily and Ron, I don't know if Ron's going to be the next one up. Lily's got a little bit of momentum with her name. Mm-hmm. We'll see. It's a high possibility of those people breaking through. Especially the Courier still has a lot of pull in the county, and a lot of the people who were waiting till the end to vote, who saw those endorsements, they might just go along with them.
Oh, that's an amazing thing. I would urge people, listen, don't allow the newspaper to make your decisions for you. I mean, really, don't do that. Get a little bit educated. And there isn't any reason. I mean, right behind Dale's left shoulder there is the badcounty.com homepage, which has all
we
the
didn't make these. We didn't make these. On it. These are not, well, with the exception of the one in the middle on the bottom here, we didn't make up these forums. These were forums that were set up by others, and we just carried them live. Sorry, Mike.
And we've never seen a year where anyone has done such a great job. So I thank you guys for getting out there, showing all the forums, putting together a few yourself, just great stuff. I mean, it's just, I haven't seen it in any other community. I mean, the technology's further along than it's been in any other time. But other than that, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just great when you get stuff done.
I'm telling you, that's what makes it so easy now to do that. As long as you have access to some decent bandwidth, you can do this live. And even if you don't do it live, you can make the recording and go home and upload it to YouTube right away. So it's you know what, we've provided a lot of content for people to be able to make decisions about the candidates. I'm a little disappointed at the numbers that we're getting. It should be in the thousands, and it isn't, and that's disturbing because obviously people are making their choices on the basis of pictures in a voter's pamphlet or the first couple of paragraphs or whatever, but and just to go back to the Keith Heck thing here briefly, I think, and I know in the last go-round, the reason I voted for him was because of who, number one, he was paired up against, and the other thing is that heck yes, people like to just do that. Oh yeah, heck yes. It's a fantastic slogan. It's a great sign. People see it and they remember it. I would hope that is not carrying it, because this guy is like...
Well, his radio ads and his newspaper ad are, for those of us who know, are just hilarious. Well, I want to continue being polite to people. Hey, when are you going to start? Continue being polite, and I've established a new record for honesty and transparency. What in the world are you talking about? It's a parody of itself.
Yeah, and you know what? I happen to have that ad here.
Yes.
So hilarious that we should listen to it right now and understand who this guy is that we need to get rid of. And does this radio commercial bear any resemblance to the man himself? Here we go. Oops, hang on. Let me restart that, for crying out loud. Okay, here we go. Now with audio on.
Hello, I'm Keith Heck, your current Position 2 County Commissioner. I'm looking to you to allow me another term. It is slightly amusing to me how there are those who believe that if you make enough noise and throw around enough slurs and insults, you are effectively leading and can get things done. Well, that is not my style nor methodology. Because I have a high regard for people, they are made in the image of God and therefore have value and dignity, I want to know them and listen to them, not just shout them down or run over them. I have shown that I can sit down with folks that represent the entire range of positions in our wonderful county. Will I always agree? No. But I will always listen without feeling a need to demean anyone in order to make me seem important. The Board of Commissioners is a team, and I truly desire to continue to be on that team. If you value that type of leadership, I would truly appreciate your support and vote for me, Keith Heck, County Commissioner, Position 2. Paid for and authorized by Heck Yes for Commissioner.
It's astounding, and the thing that's really interesting from a strategic point of view to me is his three main points were all negatives. I don't like it when people shout, at the meetings and tear things. Really, is this the first step that you want to take in explaining why we should vote for you? Maybe he feels that's his greatest strength, is that he's manning the barricades against the angry horde. Perhaps that is the basis of his support.
It's tough to say, but I doubt he ran this past any focus groups or anything else. I mean, this is him just coming up with a script, saying it out loud. There's nothing there that if he does make it past this first round of votes, there's nothing there that you can blame that on.
Well, as Mike often says, and sorry, this is about me, is that I occupy rent-free space in this guy's head. We know who he's talking about. He's certainly not talking about Lily Morgan.
Yeah, that's very, very clear from this ad, because who else is he talking about? I mean, this was the bizarro Keith Heck that we saw. And in Superman's world, the bizarro Superman is the bad Superman that's from another dimension or whatever. in this particular world, we've been stuck with the bizarro Keith Heck, and so his bizarro Keith Heck is the good Keith Heck.
Yeah,
Wow.
well, it's
Yes.
you guys are.
How do you like that explanation? Did I do that okay?
Yes.
That was
yes.
a great analogy. You guys are
Yes.
really the C-SPAN of the local area. And for those people who have never watched C-SPAN, it's where you've got both the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate on C-SPAN 2 are there, and every time they're live, they're playing them live, they're showing all the speeches that are going on, everything else. I actually worked in Congress worked within a congressional office for a while, and I had an uncle who was a U.S. congressman, so I got to watch a lot of C-SPAN. And
well, I got to work with C-SPAN when I was in Washington, D.C. for at least one election cycle.
Oh, that's right. I think I remember you saying that before.
Yes, they did. Well, one of the things about what we do is that not only did we carry these live, which has never been done in our county before, but we had this additional thing which made it a little tougher in that I was running for commissioner. And what we did was we cut it right down the middle with Mike doing all the technical aspects and me up front. And when we played back these things, you may recall we'd play back an excerpt at the beginning of every meeting, every show. We never then commented about what that person said, because by agreement we decided we'd simply play it back and you would make up your own mind. There are people in our audience that value a little extra comment about it, and simply paying it back, they're like, okay. But we never did that, and it put us into a kind of a strange position, but I think that we did that very well, as embodied by this show right here, and that is, that was the one that Inside News sponsored, and Mike was widely praised, in fact, the only moderator that shut up and let people talk, and I think established the best example of how to run a forum. Mike, you want to praise yourself?
I'll just say that I think that there is a little bit more control that I would have put on it, and I hate to say it like that because you want as much freedom as possible, but people with story questions, that drives me insane. I just want to, hey, listen, I told you, just ask the question. But anyway, we cut Brian off. He was in the middle of talking about working in a congressional office, and then you took off on C-SPAN, and then we lost where he was. So if we could go back to that.
But Brian appreciated that and would say so. So thank you very much, everybody, and good night.
You're doing it again.
Go ahead, Brian.
That's okay. I'll tie it all back together there, because what you were saying about that one forum I was there live for, and I completely agree. I mean, that was one of the coolest moderation, especially in dealing with a lot of irate people asking questions of commissioner candidates about the other commissioner candidates that weren't even in that race. So that, I mean, it's amazing. It takes a lot of skill and grace to be able to handle that. Mike did a great job.
I've never heard him described that way, but okay.
Well, in that
graceful.
case, at least, right? So, what I was talking about the C-SPAN thing is because you saw a lot of that bizarro situations happening all the time. You would always see candidates who would scream and yell and say all types of outrageous things on the floor of the House, is the main one I was always watching. They'd say things, then you'd see them go home and talk back to their constituents. And this is a different person.
Yes.
This is a person supporting different things. This is a person acting in a different way. And that was common. That was a typical behavior. Both sides of the aisle, one side a little more than the other, especially from behind the scenes, because then you meet a different person when you're in the cloakroom or running into them on the elevators. So that's politics. We get a special look at it here locally.
So go ahead, Mike.
Well, some of this is the story that Brian just told us is being reflected now in a new book that's out called, I think it's Congressman X, where it's the account of Congress by some anonymous congressperson and talking about the exact same thing that Brian was just talking about.
Yeah, I look
Brian,
forward to reading that. That's I mean, that's dead on. It's a story that's not told often enough to the everyday voter.
Yeah.
Brian, tell us about I'd asked this earlier, tell us about your feeling about the natural, what you feel are the natural combinations. For example, the obvious one is if it was Lily Morgan and Dan DeYoung, they're both from the Grants Pass City Council. What do you think about the natural and perhaps fairly unnatural combinations that could, I mean, there's with 17 candidates could be any of them, but I'm talking about the candidates that are in the lead, that we think are in the lead. What are the combinations and what do you think about them? Take us out on that, would you?
Yeah, well, the natural ones, I mean, I heard early on before Dan had even announced the discussion of Dan DeYoung and Lily Morgan ending up on the same commissioner board, and they were both very okay with that. Lily was saying that would be, it's one of her ideals, at least back then she was saying that.
Right.
I think really unique situations would be something like a Dale Matthews and a Lily Morgan. Now, Lily has been clear about the fact that she believes she can get along with anyone on that commissioner board, and I would love to see a real mix of people on the board. I'd rather see it come more from my perspective. I'd rather see two people from closer to my perspective on the board,
Sure.
but if I only get one, I'd love to see someone like you, Dale, there who can just completely mix it up, challenge some of the ideas, because the real problem right now is you have three people there who get along way too much.
Yes.
And that's the main issue. We need more gridlock on the county level.
Right. Yes, I've been saying this for a long time. Is that please let's do less. That's what I want from commissioners. Stop doing stuff. You know, and in the beginning, or throughout the last couple of years, there's been these little pieces of legislation that come from out of nowhere. What is this? Why are we doing this? And that was the question that I would always have: is why are we doing this? Why don't you just look at that, read the first couple of lines of it, and go, "Are you kidding? We're not doing this."
Right. It's common sense. Common sense. Thank you.
Yeah. I want to see more of that kind of thing, and less of, you have a team of rubber stamps in there. That's getting kind of old.
Absolutely.
And any other pairings that you think would be helpful or rather bizarre?
You would have to bring them up, and I'd have to react to them, because
yeah.
You basically have you have a small amount of establishment candidates who are basically going along to get along, that don't, and you can tell who they are because they don't want to say anything controversial or anything contradictory of people while they're running, especially to the person they're talking to. And when you have a person like that and you line them up with people with very specific ideas of what they want and what they don't want, that's interesting. And then you have a certain amount of candidates who change back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
Don't really stick to one side or the other, and you can't really tell where they're coming from.
You can't
and so
tell.
Yeah.
That would be
it's amazing to me that with what they've said, that some of the voters are going to go with people who have said basically, I've got new ideas, and one of them is economic prosperity, and another is safety, so vote for me. Really? That's amazing.
Yes. Well, and listen, I got to tell you, I think if you cannot lock them down, if they're saying one thing in one place and saying another thing in another, that's deception.
Yeah, that's true.
It isn't, it's not an overt lie, but it is deception, and there's only one reason to use deception, and that's to get your opponent. And the citizen should never be thought of this way, but to get your opponent to zig while you're zagging, and then and so you get in there, and then you do what it is that you want to do. And typically, listen, all of the candidates in this race right now know that levy is a bad word. Okay, so most of them say no on a levy. Only people like Bill Urtel will say, "Oh yeah, not only do I want a levy, I want a really big levy." You know, something like this. Bill is like that. That's just who he is. And he has said, I want to do all this stuff, but no levies. That's what he said. So in fairness, he didn't say he wanted to do a levy. But the thing is that some of these people do want to do levies. They want levies. Even if it's not them doing a levy, they want somebody else to do a levy. And those people, you know, I mean, that's deception. Why not come out and say, listen, I'm for a levy. I think we need to pass a levy. Why don't we all get together? Everybody follow me to levy land, because that's where I want to go. That's where salvation lives. And why not present that to us so that we can vote for you or against you on that basis?
Yes.
Because
well, that's one of the things that I've done is I've said this is exactly what I would do, and you would know from watching this show anyway. Here's exactly what I would do: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's nobody that's doing that, and so I feel sanguine about the whole thing, because if people say, well, no, we don't want that, okay, good. At least you know exactly what it is that I would do, and if you don't want that, well, I think you're a knucklehead. But if you don't want that, okay. You know, it is a reflection on me, but then again, it's not, because at least you've been fully informed versus someone that says, you know, well, I've always been in favor of $30,000 a year. No, you haven't. Point out one time when you said you've been in favor of getting paid $30,000. Well, it sounds like a good election thing, and if you think that it is, then you're suddenly going to say, well, I've always been there. No, you haven't. So what do we do with, well, you don't vote for them, but what do you do with candidates who say that kind of stuff?
You have to, it comes down to getting these people on tape, cutting it down to a clip, and playing it over and over and over again. It's the only thing that sinks in with people. If you
wait, let me write that down, okay? Get a clip, play it back. You're right, he's right, Mike, he's right.
Yeah, in a sense, because the person that has a very straight line platform and is very open about it, very open about what they do, everyone knows what they do, they're always going to be at the mercy of the person who's willing to bend themselves to whoever they're in front of at any given time, especially locally, unless you can expose them. But it's very tough to do locally.
Well, and listen, that's what all these candidate forums are about, and that's why people should watch more than one of them, because is your candidate mutating? I think we limited the ability of people to do that by showing them at, 7 or 8 different events, you know?
No, absolutely.
It definitely showed who, and we can be more specific because he's an incumbent, definitely showed who Keith Heck is. All you need to do is watch that Black Bear gathering, and when people would just ask him a simple question, he went kind of nuts, and he started being upset with everybody.
Yeah, not only that, and there was only 3 events that he was at, as I recall. He was at the Black Bear event to begin with, which was,
that was a big
kind
mistake.
Of a closed pool. It was a small number of people in there, a Republican Party meet the candidates night, and then he was at the Merlin Firehouse, and he blew up there too. He Tony Webb said something, and we were going around in a line. Each candidate was saying closing their closing remarks. So if you want to look at it, it's in the the last half hour of that event. That's the bottom left of on badcounty.com right now. Yeah, that one there. And Tony Webb finished. Well, first it was Keith Heck, then it was Tony Webb, and when she finished, Keith Heck got up and said, "Oh no, I can't believe you're saying that." All this, it was something to see. And then the career event. Those are the only events he's been at that I recall.
Yeah, and these ads. these ads that are defending himself, they're defensive in nature. Well, no, wait, everybody could run it that way. But isn't it better to say what it is that you've done if you've got something to talk about what you've done?
Yeah.
But to some people, he's still a contender. He is more of the same, and if you want more of the same, well, he'd be your prime candidate, really, honestly.
Yeah. And so on Tuesday night, coming up here, it's going to be again Brian and myself and Dale is going to be outside the clerk's office live, like he has been the last couple of elections. And Brian and I are going to be back here in the Inside News studio and talking about things. And then once we get it narrowed down to the final four, maybe we can talk about some of the implications of pairings of any of the combination of the few that are there and what we might end up with.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting. Now, so, Brian, do you have a final thing you'd like to say? Like goodbye?
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
All right, so we're going to go out with a still frame and a very artistic fade to black. Here's our still frame. Well, come on now. Okay, well, that was going to be a still frame. Just a second. Good gosh. Well,
we have a very high-paid technical staff here.
Good golly. And that was going to be so.
Whatever they may be, thank you.
All right, there we go. And now the fade to black. Goodbye, Stu Sennett.
Bye, Stu.